I also did skip a lot of these foundational basic things, and I tried to do all of the fancy extra things to enhance healing in my body, which is like kind of in theory a good thing to do a lot, but at the same time, it's not sustainable. It's stressful. Stress is very counterproductive, and it wasn't easy. And to be honest, it didn't really work. I had to get to these foundational basic things first, and that's why I'm really passionate about these topics. Welcome to Be Youer, where we explore the kind of healing that transforms everything so you can create your own version of heaven on earth. Healing isn't about fixing yourself, it's about unburdening the body and releasing what's not true to you so you can unlock the unique magic underneath. Because real healing is becoming more you. We'll dive into healing from the root, rewiring the mind, nervous system regulation, practical spirituality, soul-aligned living, and more, so you can break free from limitation and embody your full potential. Let me remind you, everything you desire is meant for you, and you have the power to magnetize it all, especially when you're youer. Let's dive in. Welcome to part 2 of the Beyond Band-Aid series, which is a series about healing from the root to unlock your full potential. I'm making all of the information I have about holistic healing from my 10-year plus health journey, my education at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, my time spent working for a holistic MD, my time spent coaching clients privately, and I'm putting that into an understandable, simplified manual for you through these blog posts and this podcast series. And I'm making it understandable and empowering so that you can take the action on your own. I'm going to be using my blog to guide me through this podcast, and you can always refer back to the blog. I'll link it in the show notes. It will have everything I'm talking about, so you can go back and refer to it. Part 2 is all about the overlooked basics. A lot of us want to jump ahead and get to the healthy eating, the detox, the nutritional deficiencies, the gut health, and all of these more advanced things that enhance our body's ability to heal itself, while skipping over some of our foundational needs and the basic things our body needs, again, to heal itself. And when we skip ahead to all these other things, we end up spinning our wheels, using our willpower, using a lot of time and energy, and basically it's oftentimes not necessary. So of course we want to get to the nitty gritty, but first we want to make sure we have the basics covered. And if you were to skip this, it just makes things more difficult in the long run. When I started my health journey, I was super overwhelmed with just life in general, all the responsibilities I had with school and work, and then adulting things, and then social life, and trying to balance all of these things while managing my symptoms and dealing with them and all of that. And then to learn how to heal holistically was a huge battle for me. So that's why I'm trying to make this simplified for you. But I also did skip a lot of these foundational basic things, and I tried to do all of the fancy extra things to enhance healing in my body, which is like kind of in theory a good thing to do a lot, but at the same time, it's not sustainable. It's stressful. Stress is very counterproductive, and it wasn't easy. And to be honest, it didn't really work. I had to get to these foundational basic things first, and that's why I'm really passionate about these topics. I want to preface everything I cover today by saying that we are humans and we are part of nature. And this is an important lens that I see through, and it was a shift I had to make when I started to learn to heal holistically. The modern world and our modern world luxuries that make life convenient have only been around for humans for about 0.1% of human existence, literally. And that's given, say, humans have been on Earth for about 300,000 years, and the Industrial Revolution happened about 265 years ago. And although this change made survival much easier and things way more convenient, a lot of these things contribute to health issues, which make things not very convenient in the long run, if you really think about it. I think we live in the most incredible time and space right now, and we can enjoy it as long as we truly understand what we're doing, have the knowledge, and make informed decisions, and align with the perks of the modern world as responsibly and naturally as possible. Remove any pressure from trying to be perfect, because the whole point is that we're lessening the burdens on the body so that it can do its job in healing naturally, and we can live life to the fullest and enjoy life in this modern world, in this body, enjoy the perks of that, but also be supporting the natural processes and the natural magic of our body. So I have a few sections in here, and we're going to start with air and nature. And I know this seems so obvious, but I'm going to point out some of the actual benefits of getting out in nature and getting fresh air, because I think that's helpful to have a little tangible understanding. So fresh air from the outdoors has more oxygen, which improves our energy levels, our focus, our mood. And time outside in nature reduces stress and inflammation, which improves the immune system, mood, mental flexibility and problem solving, sleep, and vitamin D synthesis. I have 2 articles linked here about nature exposure and its effects on the immune system. So getting out in nature naturally supports the body, again, in healing itself, in fighting pathogens, and in doing its job. A lot of people's concern about getting out in nature is sunburn and the risks of being in the sun. But sunlight, when we handle it responsibly, is so healthy to the human body, and it helps us align with our natural circadian rhythm. It also boosts vitamin D levels, regulates serotonin, which is the happy hormone. It improves sleep, and it may reduce blood pressure, heart disease, and certain kinds of cancer. So we should expose ourselves to the natural sunlight daily, but in a responsible way. So the way I recommend doing this is using mineral sunscreen. I get the kind that use non-nano zinc oxide in it. And what it does is it has very tiny particles that sit on the skin surface and reflect the sunlight away. The reason I choose mineral over chemical is because the chemicals have been linked to cancer and other things, which is what we're trying to prevent in the first place. They're very hormone disrupting as well. So I like to stick to as natural as possible. Again, mineral non-nano zinc oxide sunscreen is what I go for. I linked my favorite one here. We also want to think about the air quality in our homes. Again, if you think about how long humans have been in existence, 300,000 years, our bodies were not designed to be in these little boxes of houses and buildings. We were more designed to be outside more. So we want to keep the air in the home as healthy as possible. One thing to note is, depending on where you live, you can always check the weather app on your phone. It will show you the air quality in your area. As long as you have healthy air quality, it's safe to open your windows, let that fresh air in. It's so easy and free. But if you have any type of allergens or bacteria in your air, or the air in your home is bothering you in some way, you can use a HEPA air filter. I have one. So mine looks like this, and you just plug it in, you press the button. I let it run randomly, especially if I feel like the air is a little dusty and musty. And again, this is just purifying the air. It's taking out things like allergens and bacteria and particles, pet dander, things that may be irritating or problematic. Ionizers are another great option. They put negative ions into the air, and then that attracts positively charged ions that are holding bacteria and allergens, and then it kind of just falls to the ground. Houseplants are another thing that just naturally purify the air. Again, plants are part of nature. It's this gift that we have of closed-looped systems where we breathe out carbon dioxide, the plants take it in, they give us oxygen. It's a full circle. Another thing to point out is a lot of people love using synthetic fragrances, the sprays, the plugins, all those types of things. If it's using synthetic fragrance, it's definitely something to avoid if you can, or if you really want to prioritize this, because fragrance can mean anything, and a lot of them are very hormone disrupting. A lot of our leading health problems are because of hormone disruption. So I recommend using essential oils. I use an essential oil diffuser. I just sprayed myself with a spray bottle that had water and essential oils in it. You can also use soy candles and try to get ones that don't use fragrance. I think people overlook the fact that environmental toxins include things that we breathe in. It includes our air quality. And it is important that what we consume, not just through our food and through our drink, but also through our skin and also through the air and also through what we're breathing, all of that matters. The next section is water. There's a lot of different opinions about what's best to do for good quality water. Choosing good quality water can be overwhelming because water all kind of looks and tastes similar, but obviously water has a huge effect on us because we are made of 70% water, and water can hold a lot of bacteria and pathogens, toxins, things that are contributing to our health problems. So through my research, I found that the best option is purified water. The best of the best would be reverse osmosis or spring water, but it has to be really good quality spring water. So I'll just briefly review each type here. So purified water, it can come from any source, but it goes through a process that purifies it to remove chemicals, contaminants, and basically the harmful chemicals are removed, but so are most of the healthy minerals. So that's the downside to it. This is similar to filtered water, but the purification process is even further than filtered water. And reverse osmosis is the best option that I'm currently aware of for purified water. So it is the healthiest for the body, and the way that you can even enhance it a little more is to make sure you're getting enough minerals by adding a pinch of Himalayan pink salt or Celtic sea salt, or different places sell mineral drops that you can add back into the water. So there may be a remineralization cartridge you can add to your reverse osmosis system as well if you decide to go that route. And then there's filtered water. This obviously is filtering to remove chemicals or contaminants like purified, but it's not as much of a process. So again, it takes a lot of those harmful chemicals out, but there may be still trace amounts. And some of those healthy minerals are also removed. So it's just not as effective for removing the smaller particles as purified, but it's a really good choice if purified isn't available. So spring water comes from a natural source, and it's most likely not treated or purified, and the quality depends on the source. So if it's not treated or purified, it's gonna have the most minerals as they haven't been filtered out, which is good for us. But there is a chance that it's contaminated just based on the source. So if you know a local spring that you can trust, this can be a great option. The only risk with that is, pathogens. I think that there's a chance you could get a parasite if it's a bad source. So that's something to be aware of. That's kind of why I opt for the reverse osmosis. I have gotten spring water from a spring near us, but again, that was also it's something you have to commit to because you have to go get the water. So distilled water. Distilled water is a form of purified water, but it's extreme. It has gone through a distillation process that results in no chemicals, no minerals. It is like the most pure water, and it's really good to use in cleaning products or for appliances, but it isn't necessarily good to consume into the body because of the lack of minerals. And when the water has no minerals at all, it can actually hurt the body. I'm pretty sure it can pull minerals from your body to kind of balance out. So again, distilled water is good to use like externally, but not consuming. And then tap water. So tap water obviously is the water that comes from the faucet. So the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, sets the standards for our water, which makes sure that about 90 different contaminants in water, such as heavy metals, microorganisms, microplastics, residual pharmaceuticals, chlorine, pesticides, and other chemicals are not in an amount that is too high to be considered unsafe for human consumption. That doesn't mean that they're not in there, though. Like, they're in there. They're just not too high to be considered unsafe for human consumption. But if we use common sense, we know that consuming heavy metals, microorganisms, all these things I just said, residual pharmaceuticals, is not good for our health. So these chemicals are harmful to our health, however, and if you absolutely need to drink it, it's okay in small doses. But I think it's harmful when we consume it long term. So if you typically just drink tap water, I would just recommend thinking about the other things I mentioned. Again, don't beat yourself up. We're not trying to be perfect. We're just trying to lessen the amount of exposure to things that are burdening the body. And that's why water is a huge deal. When we drink water over and over every single day, it can add up. The EPA is telling us what is considered too high to be considered unsafe for human consumption. But to me, day after day, there is no level of these things that are safe and healthy. Lastly, bottled water, no matter which type of these waters is in the bottle, is problematic for our bodies due to the chemicals from the plastic which seeps into the water. It's toxic. It's connected to many of our leading health problems, including reproductive issues, hormone imbalance. That leads to thyroid disease, diabetes, obesity, developmental problems in children, and cancer. So all of that, in addition to the environmental problem of using single-use plastic over and over, is enough for me. And I think it's just not necessary. I think, again, just like tap water, if you need to do it every once in a while, I definitely will take a bottled water when there's no other options. This isn't about being extreme. It's about lessening the burden. So again, I have a glass water bottle that I use, and you can also get a stainless steel water bottle, any type of reusable, but you do want to avoid plastic. And just a side note, like plastic containers for anything we consume is not ideal. And again, we're just trying to lessen the burden. So if you can use glass containers and things like that, that's better. My family has an APEC reverse osmosis filter. That's linked in the blog post if you're interested in changing things up. By the way, many of the things I'm mentioning are going to be linked in the blog post if you want something that I researched and am recommending. So the next section is food, and I'm not getting super in depth. This is the most important things I recommend knowing about healthy eating, which I think is really a really good start, and I think it's doable for everyone. So again, I'm going to have a future post that goes in depth on healthy eating. So my main tips right now is that, or my main focus, I would say, is that 1, you're getting enough food, and 2, you're balancing the food that you're eating to get the basic nutrients your body needs in a way that's not spiking your blood sugar. So this one tip can be done today by anyone on any budget with any food, and it doesn't necessarily focus on the quality of the food, although it's obviously recommended that you choose whole, real, high quality ingredients. But I just want you to focus on balancing your meals with majority vegetables and protein as much as you can, including a little bit of healthy fat, and then have whatever carbohydrates you want with that. I think it's really easy in the modern world, especially if you're eating the standard American diet, to have way more carbohydrates or processed food, simple carbs and sugars, and not balancing it with other things. So I'm not against carbs, and I'm not saying to stop eating carbs. I'm saying make sure you're pairing it with these other things, vegetables, protein, and fat. And honestly, if you focus on increasing those other things, you're naturally going to balance out the portion of carbs. Again, I think carbs are important for our diet. But in the standard American diet, we're getting too many of the simple carbs that are breaking down, spiking our blood sugar, and not enough of these other micronutrients that we need through these other things. So again, veggie and protein, fat, and then carbohydrates. Most foods are composed of a combination of protein, fat, and carbs. So for example, quinoa is a whole grain. That's a carb, but it's also high in protein. But I would pretty much consider that a whole grain and a carb. I'm not going to list out all the vegetables for you, but I do want to remind you that you don't just need to be eating raw veggies. You can roast them, you can steam them, you can saute them, you can add them to stir fries, you can add them to soups. A hack I do is I like to get like fermented veggies like in a jar in the fridge, because I can always just take that out and eat a spoonful, and I'm getting vegetables and probiotics all in one, and it's just super quick and easy to add veggies to anything. And then for protein, protein is so important. It will change how you feel if you're not eating a lot of protein and you decide to increase it. Not only does eating protein help give you certain nutrients that you need, but it also makes you feel full and satiated for a long time. Animal-based protein is the most bioavailable form, meaning your body can absorb and utilize the nutrients most easily. So this is going to be meat and poultry, fish and seafood, eggs, and dairy. Plant-based is also awesome, and there's a lot of options here. So legumes are beans, lentils, chickpeas, and peas. These are all high in protein. Seeds like hemp seed, chia seed, flax seed. Nuts like almonds, walnuts, and cashews. Organic whole soy like edamame, tofu, tempeh, miso. Quinoa, like I said, it's a whole grain, but it's pretty high up in protein. Nutritional yeast is it's a flaky, it's flavorful, it has high in B vitamins. It's something you can kind of add to meals. Nutritional yeast is high in protein, and spirulina is also like an algae that you can get in powdered form that you can add to different things, and it's relatively high in protein as well. Healthy fats. So some forms of healthy fat are avocados, nuts and seeds, fatty fish, eggs, coconut, and healthy oils like olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, and sesame oil. In moderation, you can also have animal fat and meats, and dairy, lard, and butter. There's a lot of different perspectives on what is the right amount of healthy fat to include. Everyone is different. I think it's different for everyone. I recommend having at least a little bit of fat with each meal. Okay, let's talk about healthy carbohydrate sources. So complex carbs are carbs that are broken down slowly, which in result don't spike the blood sugar as high, which is very important for everyone. I know, like, when I first learned about this, I was like, oh, I don't have a blood sugar issue. It's important for everyone. So I will definitely go into that in the healthy eating post, but to share some options of healthy carbohydrates: whole grains like brown rice, oats, whole wheat and barley, beans and legumes, and vegetables and starchy vegetables. So these, when I say whole grains, the difference between a whole grain and a refined grain, for example, rice, the whole grain is the non-processed version of rice. It's brown rice. It has this layer on the outside that makes it the brown rice. And with white rice, that layer is taken away, and the white rice may be a little bit quicker to digest, and it could be even easier if you have digestive issues to digest. But the whole grain, the brown rice, will digest slower and therefore won't spike the blood sugar as much. It also has more nutrients in it. So again, there's another example of where this is about bio-individuality of, you know, what does your unique body need? Although brown rice technically is like the more healthy option, someone who's having digestive issues may do better with the white rice. But my general recommendation would be to lean towards the complex carbs, the whole grains, if you can. And then there's also simple carbs. So simple carbs are broken down quickly and they quickly release energy. So something like fruit is a simple carb, and dairy. And these are still healthy options. Fruit has certain fiber that helps it break down at a certain rate and not spike blood sugar as much. My biggest recommendation when it comes to carbohydrates is to not have them on their own, or what would be called like naked carbs, not just having a piece of toast with nothing on it. Include some like almond butter or something like healthy fat and protein. So some examples of balanced meals would be like broccoli with some butter and steak and sweet potato. That's giving, the broccoli is the veggie, the butter is the fat, the steak is the protein, and the sweet potato is the carb. So the salad with leafy greens and shredded carrots, there's the vegetables. With some chicken, there's the protein. With some quinoa, there's the carb, and the dressing is the fat. And then a burger, that's protein and fat. With pickles, lettuce, tomato, onion, and sauerkraut, there's veggies. And then the bun is the carb. Whole grain toast, there's the carb. With avocado, that's the fat, and egg, that's the protein. So these are just some ideas. Again, you can use this tip with what you have and just try to make sure that you're assembling the meal and including all of the portions, which is, again, protein, veggies, fat, and carbs. Something I really want to point out is to make sure you are eating enough. As long as you're not fasting, which is a whole different story, a whole different concept, and I don't recommend starting with fasting, but as long as you're not fasting, starving yourself, restricting yourself, using willpower when you're hungry is not a good idea. It's very outdated advice to restrict, and we want to make sure we're nourishing. We want to make sure we're giving the body the fuel it needs to heal itself. The next section is sleep. Sleep is one of my favorite topics. I did a research paper on it in college, and I've always struggled with my sleep. I've always been a night owl. And when I was in college, I went to the doctor to see why I slept more than my roommates and why it seemed like I was always tired, always exhausted, no matter how many hours I slept at night, and why I always felt like I needed a nap. And when I would take a nap, I would nap for 3 hours-ish, give or take, sometimes even more. And I always felt like I wanted to sleep all day. And I had definitely bad sleep habits, but also doing all of the other things that I am going to explain in this blog post helped heal my chronic fatigue. Chronic fatigue was one of the most debilitating symptoms I was experiencing, but adjusting my sleep schedule has really helped. Sleep in general, let's talk about that as something that is a basic need for the body to heal itself naturally. It's overlooked and underrated as absolute free medicine. Like, it is medicine to your body. So when you're sleeping, the body goes through healing processes like detox, repair, growth, fighting infections, cellular renewal, memory consolidation, cognitive function, emotional processing, stress reduction, and more. So simply put, a lot of the things that we work so hard with our willpower and effort and expensive products to fix could be drastically improved with ease just by closing our eyes and sleeping. Like the most simple, easy, free thing. So to reach our full potential of feeling our best, it is really important to have uninterrupted sleep, which I think in the modern world, a lot of people struggle with. Uninterrupted sleep would be going through all the phases of sleep. And to enhance this, we can practice good sleep hygiene. So that's what I'm going to kind of cover here. Again, everything that I cover throughout the rest of the blog series will impact sleep naturally. But of course, we want to set ourselves up for success with sleep. And I think a lot of people who struggle with sleep probably have tried a lot of these things, but just still hang in there. Just make sure you're doing all these basic things because it can make a difference and help you feel better with more ease. So sleep hygiene is about setting yourself up for success by preventing aspects of the modern world that hijack a good night's sleep. So these are my top tips. Number 1, intentionally sync your circadian rhythm to match nature's sun up and sundown rhythm. So again, this is something I'm always working on, and I think it's really difficult when we're using synthetic lighting and screens when it's dark out, and our brain interprets this as daylight, which keeps us from getting sleepy. So some things you can do is to expose your eyes to indirect sunlight first thing in the morning. That's super simple. Like make sure you open the window and expose your eyes to sunlight or walk outside. Doing this before you go on your phone also just impacts your whole day for the better. Just pro tip. You can also avoid synthetic lighting or screens after the sun goes down, which I know is difficult, but try to do it at least for a certain amount of time before you go to sleep, even if it's 30 minutes. But I would recommend even 3 hours before you go to sleep. If you can do other things that don't involve staring at a screen, that's really great. When you're using screens, put them on night mode setting where it removes a lot of the blue light. It might make your screen look a little orangey, but it's really protecting not only your circadian rhythm, but it's protecting your eyes and your skin as well. You can also wear blue light blocking glasses at night. They come in like glasses that just look like normal glasses. I like the ones that are like very orange. Like as long as I'm alone, I wear those. They help me feel so sleepy every single time I wear them. And then you can also swap your regular light bulbs for red light bulbs. I did this in my room. I think it's a vibe. You can also use candlelight at night. All of these things just like really help your brain not recognize the lighting as daylight, you know? Also sleeping in pitch black and using eye covers if needed. I use eye covers, and there's a study that found a link between light exposure at night, even through closed eyes, and it linked it to breast cancer. If you're used to sleeping with like the TV on or something, like something to think about. So a good aim would be to try to fall asleep about 8 hours before the sun is going to rise the next day and rise with the sun. I'm not judging because I don't do this. I'm working on it though, and I think it would really help a lot of my symptoms as well. All right, next is intentionally prevent interruptions. So don't drink a ton of water or eat a ton of food right before you go to sleep. That would cause you need to get up and use the bathroom after you've fallen asleep. Use a sound machine or a sound app if you're a light sleeper. I use both, and I make my room like a cave that nobody can interrupt me. And I know this isn't possible for everyone, but just, do what you can, do your best. Change your setup if another person or a pet interrupts you. And again, I know you can't always control this. Do the best you can. Keep your phone on airplane mode or silent mode to avoid interruptions. Avoid drinking alcohol before you go to bed. It might help you fall asleep, but it ultimately disrupts our sleep. And avoid caffeine or energizing supplements too late in the day or the evening, especially if your system is sensitive. For example, one of the supplements I take is B vitamins, and I always make sure I'm taking them in the morning because if I take them too late in the day, it makes it harder to fall asleep. And then lastly, you want to support deep sleep. Support it in being able to stay asleep. Something that most people, when I talk to them about this, they've never heard of this, is making sure that your body is fueled before you go to sleep. So if you last 8 hours and hours before going to sleep, which a lot of people recommend for weight loss, the thing is, if you wake up wired but tired, like sometimes people wake up, they're tossing and turning, or they're waking up and they're like thinking, their mind is running on a loop, or they just can't fall back asleep and they're kind of like, they're really tired, but like they feel this like jittery, wired energy. My solution for you to test out is to actually have a small balanced snack that again includes protein, fat, and carb. because that combination is going to help your body have fuel to go through the processes it's going through when you're sleeping. Sleeping is not this passive thing. There's so much going on in the body and it needs fuel to do those things. So this helps you it fuels those processes, and it helps you to not wake up and feel restless and wired, like I said. So some things you can do, I like to save a couple bites of dinner to have like closer to bedtime if I can. But I also will have like some type of small little snack. So a couple pieces of turkey pepperoni, a couple of like walnuts or some type of nuts, and a couple of berries. Like that combination is a good little snack before bed. Or I have this recipe for gelatin gut healing gummies. I use cranberry juice or some other fruit juice with gelatin and honey and put them into little molds. And they're quick little gummies that they have protein and fat and a little bit of healthy carb through the honey. Honey has been proven to support sleep. You can also add magnesium powder to that. Magnesium is a great thing to support deep sleep. And also just have like a protein bar. I love Aloha bars. Those are plant-based protein bars, or an Epic bar, or a new primal beef stick or something like that. Like, I know these things sound weird to have before bed, but a lot of people's like midnight snack is a carb, like potato chips or something like that. If you switch and make sure you're fueling your body a little bit before bed, just watch how much more like relaxed your body can feel as you sleep. You also want to swap things that energize you or make your nervous system feel wired. So scrolling, working on something that's kind of stressful, or even like socializing in a way that's like making you really excited. You want to swap those things with something that's calming before bed. So whether that's stretching or meditation or journaling or reading or listening to a podcast or watching a show, just like be honest with yourself about what you enjoy so that you can stay consistent with showing up as a habit to do it before you go to bed. But that also leaves you feeling relaxed. It can also be helpful to diffuse lavender essential oil or calming essential oils at night. That can relax you and signal to your mind that it's time to go to sleep. If you can do some type of like ritual that signals to your brain that it's time to go to sleep, and do it night after night right before you go to sleep, that's really good to create that neural pathway in your brain. Also, keep your bedroom clean and cozy, and try to keep the space just for sleeping and relaxing. And if you have a lot on your mind, doing a little like brain dump and just journaling everything out before you fall asleep can prevent you from staying up and like your mind racing. And if you're having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, even after doing all these things, there are definitely natural supplements that can really help with this. I personally take magnesium at bedtime just because I'm going to take magnesium in general, so I just save it for bedtime. I don't really have a really hard time falling asleep, but it's known to help people who have trouble falling asleep. So magnesium, melatonin, but again, So magnesium, that is just a nutrient that the body needs, as most people are deficient in it. So that's a good one to use to help to go to sleep. Melatonin is a hormone that the body releases, and you want to avoid taking melatonin every night because sometimes that can train the body to stop producing it. But it is okay to have a little bit of melatonin every once in a while if you need help falling asleep. There's a supplement called Cortisol Manager that uses different herbs and natural nutrients to help people fall asleep. Tryptophan is another nutrient that can help you fall asleep. It's what's in turkey. That's why turkey is known to make you sleepy. I take magnesium glycinate and magnesium taurate before bed, and I use melatonin on occasion if I want to go to sleep early and I don't feel tired, or if I'm thrown off from something. And as always, talk to your doctor before you add any supplements. These are starting points that need to be individualized, and especially if you're on medication, you want to talk to your doctor and make sure nothing is going to counteract. By the way, I created a full script dispensary. It has over 300 brands of supplements, all different types of supplements. Like anything that you're taking is likely on there. And I can provide 20% off to everyone who uses my link for it forever. Any orders forever and ever, you can always get 20% off, always get free shipping when you spend $50. So if you're someone who takes supplements, it's a no-brainer. You can get a great discount here. So again, I have that linked. I'll link that in the show notes too. I created almost a list of my favorite sleep supporting supplements. There's other ones that use different herbs and things that help calm the body. The next section is all about love and connection, which I know sounds like, okay, it's not that important, but it's so wildly important. Loneliness is such a huge root cause to many of our leading health issues. It's been linked to stress, inflammation, a weakened immune system, unhealthy behavior, poor mental health, and poor physical health. So, prioritizing relationships and community can help us feel less lonely. When we grow different than our friends and our loved ones, and we don't have the structure of school and activities as an adult, it's really easy for loneliness to become our new norm. I know it's totally happened for me, but forming new relationships and community is possible as an adult. You want to get involved in the activities that you enjoy and be open to meeting new people, and join communities that have already been formed, whether they're online or in person. So I'm working on creating my own online community that hopefully will have in-person aspects as well. But there's a wait list for that. It's not launched yet, but you can get on that if you would like. It's called The Universe Collective, spelled Y-O-U, Universe. So yeah, if you feel lonely, putting yourself out there can feel daunting, but follow your heart, do the things that feel exciting, and be open to meeting people. The hardest part is just doing it and getting started. So here are some ideas. You can go to classes or programs that interest you, like a fitness class or painting or sports or improv or whatever. You can also do a book club or a gardening club or an intramural sports team. And then online, there's Facebook groups, Instagram channels, Telegram channels, online communities, memberships, group coaching programs. That's where I've found a lot of my own community. You can reach out to someone online that you resonate with or someone from your past that you want to reconnect with. And just go out in public and talk to people. Go places and talk to people. You can literally say to someone like, "Hi, I'm new around here. Have you been here before?" Or, "Hi, I'm looking to make friends. Like, are you from here?" Like, just start talking to people. I love doing this when I travel, and I'm working on doing it at home. There's this really crazy thing. It's called the Rosetta effect, and it refers to studies done on a community of immigrants in Rosetta, Pennsylvania. So these people worked really physically hard jobs. They were doing like physical hard labor. They weren't wealthy. They didn't eat a healthy diet. They drank all the time. They had the same quality water, the same air quality, the same homes as all the surrounding communities. And when heart disease was on the rise, they just like weren't getting heart disease. So all the surrounding communities were getting heart disease. It was this issue and they weren't getting it. So doctors started to study them because it was kind of this like crazy thing. And through their research, they ruled out all of these other options and they found that the real only difference was that they had this really strong sense of community and no loneliness or the stress that came with it. Meaning they were in this community with all these people that were immigrants from the same place as them. And so when they came home from work, like they were all together. If someone had a fear of going broke, they didn't actually fear because they knew their community would help them. There was no, stress about what am I going to do with my kids when I have to go here. Like the community was going to help them. And I think we're missing community and we have a lot of loneliness in the world in the way that we're all so separate and divided. I linked the link to that study in here. It just shows you that loneliness does really contribute to something like heart disease and our overall health. The next one is super obvious. It's just shelter and clothing. We have to feel safe in order for our nervous system to get into true rest and digest or parasympathetic mode. And this is the state we need to be in for healing to happen. So shelter has to be top priority if it's not in order. And obviously having things like clothing and like the things that you need to feel safe. I know this seems obvious, but it's worth pointing out because it's one of our basic needs. The next section is trauma, and I feel like trauma gets talked about a lot, but let's break it down and talk about what exactly it is. It is a distressing or a disturbing experience that overwhelms a person's ability to cope. So we often think of big T trauma when we think of trauma, like war, but it can actually be any experience that fits that description. So it could be being left out, being neglected, getting yelled at. It's all based on an individual's perception of the experience more than the experience itself. And it could also have been a single experience or an ongoing experience. So trauma impacts our physical and our mental health so much. There are these really incredible studies. They're called the ACE studies. The Adverse Childhood Experiences study by the CDC. It's very well known, and it results in very clear evidence that childhood trauma has a strong link to health problems later in life. So if you had childhood trauma, you are not doomed, you're not a lost cause, but this is really helpful to understand. So I included resources below. Trauma affects everyone differently. I am not an expert, but I want to bring a light to this because, again, this is one of those basic things we need to address. The differences in the trauma itself, plus factors like coping mechanisms, genetics, environment, lifestyle, and even education, impacts healing. So some physical symptoms that can result from trauma are inflammation, because cortisol, the stress hormone, is released, and that increases inflammation, which leads to things like heart disease, stroke, diabetes, autoimmune disease, and digestive issues. It also contributes to a weakened immune system, and pain, which can show up in the body as chronic pain, headaches, and sleep issues. Some mental symptoms that can result from trauma are PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which can show up as flashbacks, nightmares, anxiety, and avoidance of the reminders of the trauma, as well as depression, anxiety, and substance abuse. So a lot of people turn to alcohol, drugs, or other behaviors to cope with their trauma. And like I said, I'm not an expert in this area, but I did want to include information to help people understand exactly what trauma is, because it's talked about a lot, but I don't hear us getting back to like what actually is it and how does it relate to our health. So I recommend getting help from an actual expert if you believe you're impacted by trauma. I linked some resources in the blog post. I'll also link them in the show notes, but the National Center for PTSD, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and National Alliance on Mental Illness are all good resources to turn to. And again, if you had trauma in your life, you are not a lost cause. I'm sharing so many things that can help your body heal itself, but I have a huge focus on mindset and mindfulness, and actually not just getting to our conscious thoughts, which control about 5% of our behavior, but actually getting to that subconscious, the beliefs we hold in our body, and calming the nervous system as we rewire those beliefs. And all of those things are going to help support us in moving forward in a positive way. Again, I'm not an expert, but the things I'm sharing can be helpful in healing the body by calming the nervous system. Next, I just want to touch on safety and security and the relation to stress, because stress is a huge factor for health issues. I know most people know this, but especially in our modern world, we're taking in so much information. We're completing more tasks. We're making more decisions. We're using more logical thinking than ever before in history. Stress can be really healthy and helpful in some ways. However, in today's world, we're living in a constant state of stress a lot of the time, which is awful for our health. And again, this is something to think about, how we have been in this modern world for 0.1% of human existence. The level of stress that we're experiencing in this unique time and space and this unique way of living is very different from the stress that we were experiencing throughout history. I think stress throughout history has been more quick experiences of stress and then you can relax, where I think in the modern world, a lot of us get stuck in feeling stressed for our entire day and just ongoing. So stress and trauma can result from a lack of safety and security, which can come from physical safety threats like violence, natural disasters or accidents, environmental issues, war, and even political instability. Also economic threats, poverty, lack of resources, unemployment, and debt. And social and emotional threats like discrimination, prejudice, bullying, harassment, lack of support, and mental health issues. Obviously, all of these things are awful, and obviously I'm not an expert in any of them, but again, I just want to shine light on the fact that these things impact our healing. Obviously, not all of these things are in our direct control, so to go into detail in all of these things would be a whole other story, but what I can say is that when we can't control something, we can control how we respond. We can do the best we can with what we have. That's all we can do. The world is certainly not perfect at this time, but it's not all bad. Keep a balance between creating intentional change around stressful things and focus on the helpers, the positive people, the good. And if you're struggling, seek help using the resources I talked about above, and I will link. None of us are meant to go through tough times alone. And again, like if you're being hard on yourself for how your body is burdening you and how you're dealing with these symptoms, like know that all of these things are related and be gentle and kind to yourself. We're coming close to the end. I want to talk a little bit about drug and medication side effects. This is interesting. So, in a perfect world, our healthcare system would utilize both holistic practices and modern medicine to truly cure and prevent the suffering from health issues. Our modern healthcare system in the Western world primarily uses medication and surgery to treat issues as they appear. But they're typically only band-aid solutions that mask the symptoms and allow the root cause to worsen inside the body, which eventually leads to even worse issues. This is why we're in a health crisis. Using holistic practices can help us heal these issues from the root while preventing them from happening in the first place. That's what this whole thing is about. And with that being said, modern medicine is incredible and amazing, and it has its place, especially for emergencies and severe issues that involve pain or debilitate someone from living their life. But the problem is that taking medication has become so common in today's world, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's always the best solution or a good solution long term. This is a very individualized thing, and I'm clearly not a doctor. But luckily I did work for a holistic MD, and I have witnessed so many people wean off of their medication as they implemented holistic practices. And I was myself given the option of antibiotics or harsh drugs for acne by my doctors and dermatologists. And I, thank goodness, knew better. And I, thank goodness, found people who opened my eyes to the world of holistic healing, because that's what I'm sharing with you today. My skin was the biggest motivator for me, and I was able to heal my skin without those medications, without the harsh drugs, without the antibiotics. And the point is that medication is a really good resource, but it's often overused when holistic methods could potentially solve many of these issues while simultaneously healing other parts of the body and preventing poor health all around. The biggest reason we want to use holistic remedies as a first result and use modern medicine as more of a last result is because modern medicine usually masks the symptoms while allowing the root problem to get worse in the long run. And also it often comes with side effects that can be short or long term and mild or severe. And if we're being real, some medication solves one problem but creates other problems due to the side effects. So not only does this impact day-to-day life, but it can also cause allergic reactions, organ damage, and ultimately lead to other major health issues. A couple things I want to focus on that I personally have experience with is antibiotics, because the purpose of antibiotics is to kill bad microorganisms that infect the body and create some form of sickness. So for example, when I was younger, I used to get ear infections a lot, and I would get antibiotics. So the problem is when you take those antibiotics, they're not just killing the bad, they're also killing the good microorganisms that are part of the natural ecosystem of the body and naturally fight the bad and support the body in so many ways. So this is a problem when we go through multiple rounds of antibiotics like I did. And it would have been nice if my doctors told me to take probiotics to replenish the good bacteria when I was a kid. It also would have been nice to know that there are natural remedies to use for ear infections and for other things, and to even have the tools to prevent these things to begin with. I'll share natural remedies in a future post, but just a heads up, you can use oil of oregano in olive oil and make drops out of that for ear infection. I just did it like last year and it worked amazing. And for some people, they will need antibiotics, but again, the point is that we're lessening the burden on the body. Another thing is Tylenol. So this is an over-the-counter that seems harmless, but did you know that it prevents liver detox for about 3 days? So when we're sick and we're fighting an infection, our liver detox needs to be on point. Like, we want to support our liver as much as we can when we're sick. So I think using common sense is just not the best option. So if you are on medication, this is not to shame you or judge you in any way. This is for you to take an honest assessment of what you're taking and why, and make an informed decision about how to move forward. Talk to your doctor about it. Then assess if a holistic approach can help you feel better and lessen or eventually stop the medication in the future. Also, research your medication, because unfortunately a lot of people are not getting fully informed about what they're taking. And I need to make it clear, do not abruptly stop medication, especially on your own without a doctor's guidance. Talk to your doctor about everything regarding medication, holistic supplements, and herbs, and the interactions of them. Most holistic practices that I am teaching can be done alongside medication, like changing your food or creating healthy habits or focusing on gut health. But again, I am not a doctor. I simply want you to know your options and inspire you to do what you truly feel is best for your body in an informed way and work with your healthcare practitioners to move forward. Again, I want to emphasize when medication is involved, changes must be made with a doctor. The last thing I want to talk about today is self-sabotage behavior. So if you find yourself self-sabotaging, which is engaging in behaviors that work against you and your goals and what you really want, you're not alone. I'm always working on improving this area. We can be taking all of the steps to our health, but if we struggle with self-sabotage patterns, we cannot be the healthiest and happiest versions of ourselves. So some examples of self-sabotage behaviors are things like procrastination, perfectionism, people-pleasing, negative self-talk, isolating, overeating, excessive screen time, and substance abuse. The list goes on. A lot of these habits and patterns are subconscious, meaning that they happen on autopilot and they're related to limiting beliefs that are like within us. They're not logical thoughts. So we can fall into this because of underlying fear and scarcity-based mindset issues like a fear of failure or having issues with our self-esteem or emotional regulation issues or an unhealed past. So a lot of times we look at these self-sabotage behaviors as bad habits, but it's really important to know that these bad habits serve us in some way. That's why we're doing them. Typically, they comfort us momentarily to help us avoid feeling the discomfort of something. By acknowledging how they serve us, we can give ourselves grace and be kind to ourselves. This actually helps us break free from it. So it's important to make small shifts, replacing bad habits with supportive ones that serve us in the same way, and practice rewiring these limiting beliefs. So this is a lot of what my coaching involves. My private coaching is a lot about the behavior change on a subconscious level and feeling safe as we rewire our brains and make new habits, because that can feel very unsafe to the body, and then in turn support our body in healing itself. So if you wanted to explore this, you can start by being a gentle observer of your own thoughts and actions. So without judgment, without trying to change them, just notice. And when you begin to take note of these repeating thoughts and these repeating patterns, then you can kind of journal on the following question. How is this thought or pattern serving me? And you want to dig deep because you're doing it for a reason. And once you better kind of understand that reason, it helps you because then you can identify a healthier thought or a healthier habit that will serve you in a similar way. So you're going to try to replace that old thought and old habit with the new, understanding that at first you won't get it perfect. So it will just become easier over time. You really have to be gentle and kind to yourself when you're doing this kind of thing. So for example, if I notice that my main self-sabotage habit is scrolling on social media, as it has been many times in my life, I might journal and realize that it's serving me by making me feel quick boosts of happiness while allowing me to put off facing the overwhelm of everything else I have to do. Like if my to-do list feels really overwhelming, sometimes I'll find myself on social media because it's giving me these like feel-good hits instead of me feeling overwhelmed. So now that I can see this, I can alleviate it by creating a to-do list and organizing the like scattered mind of all the overwhelm, and then just choosing a couple things to prioritize for that day and putting everything else on a for later list, which I really do this. I have an A list and a B list, and the A list is like priority. This alleviates that overwhelm, and I can work on my to-do tasks while pairing them with something that makes me happy, like music or a podcast or whatever, so that I feel that sense of accomplishment. I'm not feeling overwhelmed, and I'm also feeling happy. Like I want to also do things that are giving me the feel-good feelings that I was searching for while I was scrolling. So after I figure this out, this doesn't mean that I won't find myself scrolling ever again, but it's going to be easier and easier to stop that and engage in a healthier habit. I thought that was last, but actually last is mental consumption, and this is such a good one. This has been one of the most game-changing things for me. So it's important to focus on what we consume beyond the tangible things of the food we eat, the drinks we drink, the products we use, but also like media, music, social interactions, all of the things we're mentally consuming and emotionally consuming impacts our health and well-being so much. Also our life in general. So take inventory of what you consume mentally on a day-to-day basis, from when you wake up to when you go to bed. What are you engaging with? What are you listening to? What are you reading? From toxic work environments to too much social media, we can end up taking in negative and disempowering messages that can create stress and contribute to unhealthy behaviors. So I personally believe my healing was accelerated by being really, really, really intentional in this area. So, for example, in work life, if you find yourself negatively impacted by a toxic boss or coworkers, like think about what can change. Can you leave for your lunch break? Can you switch shifts? Can you change jobs? Like, I know some of these things feel really big. Start small with what you can do, but yeah, think big. You are in control of your life. It can be as little as just speaking up and setting a boundary with love. When it comes to social life, if you find yourself negatively impacted by friends or acquaintances in your social circle, again, what can change? Can you speak your truth and ask for support? Can you change what you do together? Can you go out and get involved in new activities and meet new friends? Like, there's a million ways to approach any of these problems. A huge one is social media and media. I think a lot of people will relate to this, but are you negatively impacted by social media or media in general, like the TV, the news? And can you get your news in a different way? Can you take a social media cleanse? Can you set time limits on your social media apps and be very intentional about the time you spend on them? Can you replace your normal media consumption with something more enriching, like socializing, art, or even just a more supportive account or channel? For me, I remember when I was at a really stressed out low point. I talked about this in part 1, but just being like very confused in life. This is like before I like quit my job and took a one-way flight to Hawaii, but I was super, I couldn't take in negativity because my brain was already enough negativity going on. And it was like, I was trying so hard to figure out my life path. And I knew I wanted an extraordinary life. And I knew that if I kept taking in disempowering things, it was going to make it feel further out of my reach. It was going to make me feel like I could never get there. And it was going to eventually make me give up. So I was super intentional I replaced a lot of watching TV shows and stuff with listening to empowering podcasts. And it's not like it's healthy for me to constantly take in self-development forever, but there was a chapter of my life where it was exactly what I needed and it was perfect and it helped me so much. So just making sure the TV shows I watch are uplifting and positive and not disturbing me and making me feel bad in any way. Just making sure I'm tuning into frequencies of people that I want to listen to, that I want to be like, that I want to be impacted by. And even art, like music and shows and anything that sends a message, a book, like a story, anything that sends a message impacts your beliefs and your well-being. So can you be intentional about these things that you're consuming and what needs to change? So that's it for these common overlooked basics. Again, I really just wanted to point out each one, make people aware of these things, and make sure that they're prioritized before we jump into spending energy, time, or money on more advanced things that are enhancing our healing. Please share this podcast and blog post with somebody who could benefit, or share it on your social media and tag me at KristenRoseXO. If you're focusing on implementing these healthy habits and making change in some of these areas that I've been talking about, you will love my free guided audio experiences. They're a mix of some somatic breath work, some meditation, some guided deep questioning, and I'm creating more to come, but I'm just going to put them all in one place for you guys. You can get that for free. I'm going to link that in the show notes. These are meant to take you from overwhelmed and stuck to clear and empowered and ready to take action. And they're going to leave you feeling very calm yet energized. If you'd like more individualized support in your healing journey, I'm going to link my options for private coaching in the show notes. And they're on my website. And there's a lot more really good stuff to come in this series. So make sure you're subscribed to my podcast and go subscribe to the blog. It's going to be so helpful to have everything written and linked. Pretty much everything I mentioned, down to the blue light blocking glasses, are linked in the blog post. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day. Thank you for listening. The best way to say thank you is by subscribing and leaving a review. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you love or post it on social media and tag me at KristenRoseXO. You can find all my free resources and current offers at KristenRoseXO.com. That's Kristen with an E. Everything is linked for you in the show notes. Have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you soon.